Have you heard of Big Vape? It's trending on Netflix
No.
right now. Okay. So it is the rise and fall of Juul. You know that those little e-cigarettes things that look like, they said it was the iPhone of e-cigs, right? I was watching it. It first off, it's really good for those people who are like on the fence if I should get if I should watch it or not. It's extremely good. I already suggested it to CJ and Jose. Jose's like, yo, this is fire. I think Jose used to vape Juul, so that's why I was like, yo, watch this. The mission, one of the biggest lessons that I got from it was like, the mission doesn't necessarily always translate to like the consumer, right? So their big mission was to eliminate cigarettes, period, right? And in their journey, they've definitely taken a huge role of why cigarettes sales have went down. I think even now, I rarely see people smoke cigarettes. And, you know, there's been a lot like, oh, it smells, it yellow teeth, just the ickiness of it. You have to go outside in like the rain when it rains because you can't smoke. Like it's crazy, right? So their target audience is adult smokers. What happened was, as they're marketing, because they're a startup, you have to get yourself out there. They got with one of the people who used to market for Red Bull, right? And what I love about how Red Bull markets their stuff, and he even said it was like allowing your products to be discovered in a cool way. So if you look at Red Bull, you see like all the advertisements on like skateboards, and when somebody skydive, they're parachuting their whole thing. Like it was just cool ways where people were watching and they just saw Red Bull. So they took that as well as the lifestyle kind of marketing. So in parties, in like showing dancing, just having fun and that whole nine, to where they didn't think fully that this is going to attract to a younger crowd. So if you advertise in a cool way and you advertise in a lifestyle situation, and plus you make it into different flavors, that mango and all these different things, now it goes to you're attracting the kids. And so there was this big situation that not all the kids, a lot of kids were vaping, right? Like people were warning them like, yo, this is going to backfire some way, shape, or form, right? Now, realistically, we can't, I think vaping has only been around for like 10, 15 years the most. And so to figure out, mind you, I'm not a doctor, I'm not stating anything. I'm going based off the documentary. So sitting and saying the life effects of what vape has is not really solid just yet. They're solid on cigarettes, but they're not solid on the actual health risks of vaping. Now, there was this situation where a lot of people were starting to die. And the common situation was, yo, I'm vaping, right? So it was like all these kids kind of having lung issues. And come to find out, that was really THC situations that were going into these devices because you could take off the pod that was killing people. There was a statement they said, because they didn't run that back and say, hey, no, Juul didn't kill these people. It was the THC products. All people were seeing was that it was Juul products being used, and that was the common denominator. So somebody said, and I put this on Threads yesterday, fact checks never goes viral as much as the lie. So they ran with Juul's killing people, right? But when the real facts came out, the real facts didn't go viral as much as Juul is killing people, right? So that part was like, I get it. Now, in their early stages, because they came up with so many different models that wasn't working, they prided themselves of being a tech company. They didn't want to be big tobacco. That's not what they were trying to do. They one of the things they were saying is like, smoking isn't about the nicotine delivery. It's about the rituals and preserving them for them, right? So that's what they were trying to do. They weren't trying to be the pushers of nicotine. They were just trying to push the rituals and the fellowship and that whole nine. So they were doing all these different devices that wasn't necessarily working. They came up with one that would put like loose tobacco in it and burn it. Now, they thought that was dope. What they didn't realize is that cannabis people started to take on to that instead of who they originally thought it was, right? And this is where, okay, do I go with who I intended to, or do I move with where it goes? And at the time, they moved to where the audience is. So then they started embracing the different cannabis influencers, and that was paying the bills as they were trying to figure out the right device for the nicotine thing. So even their investors was like, hey, yo, this brings in money. Absolutely. I see what the audience wants, but this is not the mission. This is not the goal. We got to go back to what we intended to do, which was eliminate cigarettes. You've now created a new device in another niche. They kept with it, but they kept trying to build the actual Juul. It's a really dope docuseries. If I gave too much, I apologize. You should have watched it already, okay? You watched it already. I don't know what to tell you. But it's a really good as far as understanding from a business wise how they scaled. Like they were struggling with scaling. Then it just blew up one time based off the influence of young people always carrying it. And so then they couldn't keep it on the shelves, to then bringing in, like chopping out their original CEO, which was one of the founders, bringing in a yogurt guy who like specialized in chain supplies, right? The supply situation. And just seeing how business works from an idea. It was literally a thesis in college to then being worth billions of dollars, to then reduce it all the way down to like a third of their valuation. It's a really good docuseries.
I remember sometime maybe in the last 2 years, they were saying that they were going to ban e-cigarettes in New York. So I don't know if that
I know they tried
to contributed to the fall.
I know they tried to do it in what was it? In San Francisco, I think. One of the Sands in California. I don't know if San Diego, San Francisco, but they did do it in San Francisco. And their whole thing was, we need to protect the kids. And here's where I found interesting, because they started showing a whole bunch of adults that was like, yo, who's speaking for us? Like, this is literally helping me quit cigarettes. Like, I haven't touched it in 5-10 years. If you ban it, what am I supposed to do? You know, so there goes like your original mission, but you didn't think through who else would be affected. Mind you, I could care less about smoking and that whole nine, but it's very interesting to see like those different kind of obstacles of, are you thinking of everything possible if this was to work? Like, who is it going to be in the hands of? Who is it going to affect? What is the mindset of certain people? Like, if this really blows up, what is really the true effects of it? That I was blown away from it. It was a really good docuseries.
Yeah. No, I love things like that because they speak to the validation process of what you're building and conceptualizing. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
How do you think some of that is can be avoided from a branding and marketing standpoint? Because the thing that comes to mind is you come up with an idea, you have a plan for it, you put it in the hands of the marketplace, but the marketplace responds to it a little bit differently. Do you think that can be avoided from a social media and just overall branding standpoint? Or is that small use cases where let's roll out with this group and test and get feedback and then expand? What's your take on that?
So it's hard because branding is what the people think of it, right? We could market it and place it in certain places so to make sure that it's embedded in people's minds a certain kind of way. But it's hard to say that how could that have been avoided if, well, it could have, because their marketing off top when they did the big Times Square situation was to grab younger folks dancing around and partying with Juul. They did parties that was full of Juuls, great places to take pictures in order to bring influencers in and have them take pictures with the actual joint, because they're attracting the social media crowd, which in social media crowd is a younger crowd.
Yeah.
So they tried to fix it later on with like the most boringest pictures, like it was on a book during a meeting, somebody having coffee. They did like bland coloring, where in the beginning it was super bright coloring. It was orange, it was yellow, it was all over the place, right? So and I understand like their thought process as far as even with the flavors. We know flavors is going to attract younger people. Like, we got mint, we got mango, we got all this like, but their thought process was, hey, if you're trying to get off cigarettes, and cigarettes really taste nasty. I don't know, I've never had, I only know the smell. But cigarettes taste nasty. I'm not going to give you a menthol e-cig. I'm trying to get you off of cigarettes, meaning I'm trying to give you a whole different experience. So I could understand that particular part. I can understand the sleekness of how because it's a tech world. So how do we make this look sexy, portable, that whole nine? But I think where they went wrong was that they didn't have Big Tobacco, like as far as on their team earlier. So their big whole thing was they never wanted to work with Big Tobacco. It was like, we are the anti-Big Tobacco people. They're killing people, right?
Yeah.
Which I'm very confused, because I think nicotine is, I don't know all the bad parts about nicotine, but I got to look that up now. But if they had somebody who they could trust in Big Tobacco, they would understand how to market it correctly. So what Big Tobacco did was exactly what Juul did in the beginning. They did advertisement of younger people partying that made it look acceptable. That's exactly what Big Tobacco did in the beginning. They just made it look more modern. And so if they had somebody who they could trust in Big Tobacco that is now turned to, I want to get rid of cigarettes just like you, then they would know the gaps and the falls of Big Tobacco to avoid and say, hey, this is just a better solution. This is what we could do. But they went with the let's try to hit the masses. Let's try to go and their original reason of lowering down cigarette sales and making it super popular. Cool. They dominated the e-cig situation. It was Juul majority of the time. They made billions of dollars. They dominated that. But getting into such a risky market such as something that can affect health, I don't know how you can really avoid some of the things when kids are kids. What do you think?
Yeah. It's a strategy that really is not utilized enough. And there's only one other brand that I've seen do that but the strategy I'm referring to is collaborating with your biggest competitor early so that you can neutralize their position against you. Mm-hmm. So the only person who I've seen do this recently, who's been on Front Street about it, is Dwayne Johnson and the XFL brand. So if you noticed, when we covered them on the podcast actually a couple of months ago, where when they were launching the brand, they made it clear that they don't want to compete against the NFL. They want to work with them.
Right.
And so sure enough, after their first successful season, they found a way to integrate. So I thought that was a good move because you're going to your biggest competitor and you're saying, hey, I know that you can crush me. You have all this experience, you have all these resources on me. So I don't think it's smart to try and compete against you, although you are my competitor. Let's not overlook the fact of the situation. But it's a strategic business move to go to your biggest competitor and find ways to collaborate so you can at least give yourself time in the market to really mature, grow, know what the response is, and make your moves from there. So yeah, that's the part that stuck out from what you said there, that they didn't want anything to do with big tobacco, where maybe if they would have looked for a way to create a mutual relationship, it could have been beneficial to them. Who knows?
They did at the end when it was kind of like too late, but the collaboration, the way they kind of stated it, was more of showing that big tobacco lost. This is where sales were already declining really bad. And so they were like, you know what? Let's just work with you. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
We lost. We lost. So here, we're going to give you these billions and we're going to give you these resources that you may not have because we lost. So we might as well just stay relevant by working with you. So that
They're probably looking for an acquisition, maybe.
So maybe that's more of what they honestly want, because I believe they got an early investment from Big Tobacco. Not what everybody, like, I think it was like an overseas Big Tobacco or something. And people in the company were like, do we want to do this? Well, this is where the money's coming in. So you could give me another, and that's another thing. Like, how mission driven are you that you will not take money from the actual competitor that you're trying to defeat? That's something I know you would be like, nope.
Yeah. Well, the new me understands, again, this concept of the phases of a business, where if it gets you to the end goal, you want to find a balance to it, not just a strong no. And I also think it depends on the company. It depends on the category of a company. So there's a lot of variabilities now. I really try to not operate in just absolute extremes outside of just the crazy, immoral things. But in a business standpoint, I really push myself to be as open-minded as possible until there's just no other way but, that. So I'm growing a little bit. I'm growing.
Shout out to you and growing. Yeah, people watch it. I think it's like 3 episodes or something like that effect. 3 or 4 episodes. Really, really good. Go check out Big Vape. I think it's called The Rise and the Fall of Juul or something to that effect. But I know it's called Big Vape and it's trending on Netflix as I'm speaking. It may not trend when you're listening to it, but it was trending when I was.